The smell of antiseptic and stale coffee was the first thing to hit me. It was a scent I'd come to associate with the final, pathetic months of my life, lying in a hospital bed, STA ring at the same cracked ceiling tile while my sister, Emma, and my husband, Mark, drained my accounts and waited for me to die. The second thing was the beeping. A frantic, high-pitched whine that drilled into my skull. My eyes flew open. The light was blinding, but not the HRSH fluorescent GLA of a hospital room. It was the WA-RM, buttery light of a late afternoon sun filtering through a window. My window. The one in the APA meant I'd saw red with MARK before everything went wrong. I shot upright, my heart hammering against my ribs. My body didn't ache. My skin wasn't a waxy, jaundiced yellow. My hair, which had fallen out in clumps, was thick and heavy against my shoulders. I looked down at my hands. They were smooth, unblemished by the needle marks and 4 bruises. I scrambled out of bed and ran to the full-length mirror. The face that STA read back was my own, but a version of me I hadn't seen in years. I was 28 again, just a month shy of my 29th birthday. My skin was clear, my eyes bright with life, not the dull, glazed-over look of a woman who'd been slowly poisoned. It worked, I whispered, my voice trembling. It actually worked. I'd gone to sleep in my hospital bed, a bitter, broken shell of a person, consumed by a rage so pure it was like a physical force. I'd spent my final months replaying every moment of my life, dissecting every manipulation, every carefully planted lie. The only person I'd ever truly loved and trusted was my older sister, Emma. She'd been my rock, my confidant, my shield against a world we'd faced together after our parents died. And she'd handed me over to a monster. The memory hit me like a physical blow. The blind date. It was tonight that this was the pivotal moment. In my first life, it had been a nightmare. A business rival of my father's, Mr. Sterling, had offered to set me up with his promising young protégé, a man he called Daniel Chambers. I'd been nervous, already feeling the invisible pressure from everyone to find a man and settle down. Emma had volunteered to come along, to give me a sisterly assessment. She'd smiled, held my hand, and told me Daniel was perfect. He was a successful lawyer, charming, and had a confident swagger that she said was sexy. I had been dazzled. He'd swept me off my feet, and within 6 months, we were married. It wasn't until our honeymoon that I discovered his business trip was to a casino in Vegas, and the big deal he was celebrating was winning back enough money to cover the debts he'd lied about. The charming swagger was arrogance born of a gambler's high. The successful lawyer facade was a fraud he'd carefully constructed. But by then, I was trapped. Emma, who had introduced us, became his most ardent defender. He just needs support, Lily. He's under so much pressure, she'd say. A good wife helps her husband through his struggles. And I, desperate to believe in the fairy tale, believed her. Until I got sick. The cancer diagnosis had been a shock, but the slow, creeping realization that my loving husband and ring sister were waiting for me to die so they could collect my inheritance had been the real death blow. Mark had been siphoning money from our joint accounts from day one, and Emma had been his accomplice. They'd been having an affair for years. The news had broken me more than the cancer ever could. A sharp knock on my bedroom door shattered the memory. Lily sweetie, are you ready? We have to leave in an hour. Emma's voice. So bright, so full of fake concern. A wave of pure, visceral hatred washed over me. The betrayal was so fresh, so raw, it felt like my skin was burning. But I forced myself to take a deep, steadying breath. I had to be smart. I couldn't just scream at her or tell her to go to hell. That would only make her suspicious. In this new life, she was still the doting sister, and she had a role to play tonight. That I opened the door. Emma was standing in the hallway, impeccably dressed in a form-fitting red dress that I knew she'd picked out specifically to upstage me. Her makeup was flawless, her blonde hair perfectly tousled. She was beautiful, and she knew it. She used it like a weapon. "There you are. You've been in your room all day." I was rooting to worry. Her eyes scanned me, taking in my old jeans and t-shirt. "And you're still not dressed. Lily, Daniel is an amazing catch. You need to make a good impression." "Here," she said, pulling a sleek, black cocktail dress from her own closet. "We are this. It'll look so much better on you than it does on me." In my past life, I'd been so touched by her generosity, so grateful that she was helping me. Now, I saw it for what it was, a transparent ploy to make me look frumpy. The dress was designed to wash me out. "Thanks, I said, my voice honey-sweet. "You're the best." I was just so nervous, I lost track of time. I took the dress, but as soon as she left, I tossed it on my bed and pulled out a different outfit, a simple, but elegant, emerald green wrap dress. The color made my dark hair and fair skin glow. I was going to look my best, not to impress this fraud, but to be undeniable. I wanted Mark. I couldn't think of him as Daniel, that name was a lie. I wanted him to see me. To want me. To know exactly what he was giving up when he inevitably fell for Emma's act. An hour later, the three of us were in the back of a sleek town car. Emma had insisted on picking me up from my apartment, to calm your nerves, as she put it. She sat between me and Mark. He was handsome, I had to admit. In a polished, slick, corporate way. It was a mask he wore perfectly. "Lily, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Emma hasn't stopped talking about you. She says you're a brilliant architect." He directed a dazzling smile at me. His eyes were the color of WRM whiskey, and they held a practiced, confident WRMTH. I knew that smile. I knew the coldness that lurked just beneath its surface. I returned his smile with a demure one of my own. "It's nice to meet you, Daniel. Emma has told me so much about you." As I spoke, I subtly angled my body toward him, putting my shoulder between him and Emma. A deliberate and territorial move I would never have had the nerve to make before. I saw Emma's eyes narrow, just a fraction. Good that we arrived at the restaurant, a ridiculously exclusive spot called Oriole, known for its astronomical prices and its see-and-be-seen atmosphere. The perfect place for a man like Mark to put on a show. As we were led to our table, I let my hand drift against his arm, a brief, incidental touch that I made sure he felt. "It's beautiful in here," I said, my voice soft and a little breathless. "I've never been." "It's so generous of you to pick a place like this, Daniel." He preened, just as I knew he would. "Only the best for a woman like you, Lily." The performance had begun. Emma tried to interject, to steer the conversation toward her own accomplishments, but I kept redirecting it back to Mark. I asked him about his work, his hobbies, his favorite places to travel. I listened intently, my eyes wide and focused. I let him talk about himself, which was his favorite subject. I made sure his attention was fixed firmly on me, his hand reaching for mine across the table. Then, I saw the woman. A stunning redhead in a slinky blue dress, being seated at a NEARBY table. In my past life, I hadn't noticed her. But I knew who she was now. She was Mark's ex-fiancée, a woman named Chloe. The woman he'd cheated on and dumped when a better opportunity, in the form of my inheritance, came along. He had used a different name with her too, a minor detail that should have set off all RMS for me back then. Now, I leaned in close to Mark, my voice dropping to a low, conspiratorial whisper. "You know, Daniel, this is so strange. I could have sworn I saw you at a gallery opening last month in Soho. You were with a woman with beautiful red hair. Long, curly. I was on a client meeting and I didn't want to interrupt. Was that your sister? His face went pale. A brief flicker of panic shot across his eyes before the mask slammed back into place. No, I don't think so. I was out of town for most of last month, he stammered. You must have been mistaken. I don't think so, I said, letting my smile falter, just a little. I looked over his shoulder, directly at Chloe, and gave her a tiny, apologetic wave. She froze, a look of shock and recognition dawning on her face. Emma, sensing the shift in dynamic, jumped in. Oh, Lily, you're probably imagining things. You know your memory is terrible. She laughed, a brittle, grating sound. So, Daniel, tell us more about that case you're working on. The one with the tech company. It sounds fascinating. But the damage was done. Mark was fidgeting, his confident demeanor gone. He was off balance, and I knew he hated that. He kept glancing nervously at Chloe, who was now whispering furiously to her companion. I had successfully planted the seed of doubt, and the poison was already rooting to spread. It was time for phase 2. Oh, my God, I said suddenly, feigning surprise. Emma, are you feeling okay? You look a little flushed. I placed a hand on her forehead. You're burning up. I knew you shouldn't have worn that silk blouse. It's so thin. You're probably getting a chill. I'm fine, she snapped, batting my hand away. I'm not sick. No, I think you are. I insisted, my voice laced with concern. You look like you're about to faint. You've really touched your food, and you've been drinking your wine so fast. We should get you home. Daniel can take me home, and you can take the car. I don't want you driving. I said I'm fine, Lily. Her voice was sharp, impatient. The mask of the perfect sister was cracking. She was furious that my little illness performance was stealing her thunder. But that was exactly the reaction I'd been hoping for. Mark, who had been silent since the Chloe incident, saw his opportunity to regain control. Emma, listen to your sister. You do look pale. I'll call you a car. Lily can stay and I'll take her home myself. It's no trouble. Emma's face went white with fury, but she was trapped in her own narrative of being the perfect ring sister. She couldn't refuse to go home without looking like a brat. Fine, she said through gritted teeth. If you're sure. I'm sure, Mark said, giving her a broad, ingratiating smile. Don't worry about a thing. I'll make sure Lily gets home safe. I watched as my sister was led away by a waiter, her red dress and her poisoned words trailing behind her. I should have felt a twinge of sadness, a flicker of the love I once had for her. But all I felt was a cold, hard satisfaction. I turned back to Mark, my expression softening into one of timid vulnerability. I'm so sorry about that, I said, reaching across the table and taking his hand. She gets like that sometimes. She can be a bit dramatic. It's always been the two of us, you know. And sometimes she can be a little overprotective. I think she was trying to impress you. She's always trying to impress everyone. He covered my hand with his other one, his thumb stroking the inside of my wrist. A familiar, practiced gesture. Don't apologize for her, Lily. You're not responsible for her behavior. He leaned in closer. For what it's worth, I wasn't there to meet your sister. I was there to meet you. And I'm so glad I did. I know, I said softly, my eyes locked on his. I can tell. You're different from the other men I've met. They were all so shallow. I squeezed his hand. Do you mind if we get out of here? The air in this place is so stuffy. Maybe we could take a walk. I know a quiet spot by the pier. His smile widened. He thought he was reeling me in. He thought I was a naive, lovesick little fool, charmed by his smooth talk and his expensive suit. He had no idea that the woman across from him was a hunter, and he was the prey that we left the restaurant and walked toward the East River. The city lights glowed around us, and the water lapped gently against the docks. The silence between us was thick with unspoken promises. This was the moment. In my past life, he'd kissed me under this same sky, and I'd fallen head over heels. It was the final seal on my doom. But this time, I was the one in control. We reached the pier. He stopped and turned to face me. You know, Lily, I've never met anyone like you. You're so different. So real. I looked up at him, my eyes wide and shining. Thank you, Daniel. That means so much to me. This was it. The pivotal moment. This was where I decided his fate. I tilted my head, my smile sweet and innocent, and I said, "It's a shame my sister had to be here tonight. She's beautiful, isn't she?" Men always seem to notice her first. He stiffened, the mask of romance slipping for a second. Emma. I mean, I suppose she's attractive, but she's gorgeous. I cut him off, my voice still light. And she's single, you know. She's been so lonely since she broke up with her last boyfriend. I think she'd be a great match for someone like you. The suggestion hung in the air, a poison dart. He blinked, confused. In my past life, he'd been drawn to Emma from the start. It was a natural, magnetic pull. I was just the stepping stone he had to Mary to get the money. I was handing him a shortcut. He just didn't know it was a trap. She's just not my type, he said, trying to salvage the moment. It's okay, Daniel, I said, placing a gentle hand on his chest. I know my sister. I know what she's like. You don't have to pretend. The lie felt so good on my tongue. I see the way you look at her. I see the way she looks at you. It's okay. I'm not the jealous type. I let the silence hang for a moment, my words sinking in. Then, I smiled sweetly. I'm just glad you were so good to me tonight. My sister deserves someone good like you. I hope you two hit it off. He read at me, utterly baffled. I had just given him permission. I had just told him I saw him as a prize for my sister. It was the ultimate, twisted gift. I watched the hairs turn in his head. The greed in his eyes. He was thinking about Emma, about how it was a more direct route to the money. He was already comparing us, and in his mind, the calculation was simple. Emma was the more aggressive player. She'd be a better partner in crime. In his mind, I was just the perfect idiot he'd already won over. And he was right. I was an idiot, once. But not anymore. I leaned in and pressed a soft, chaste kiss on his cheek. Take care of her for me, okay? I turned and walked away, my heels clicking a confident rhythm on the cobblestones. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The trap was set. I'd given Mark to Emma, and I'd given Emma to Mark. I had smiled as I gave her the gift of my fate, a man who was a fraud, a pathological liar, and a gambling addict with debts that would eventually swallow her whole. The revenge was a slow burn, a poison I'd poured into the very heart of their relationship. And I couldn't wait to watch them both drink it dry. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in acting. I played the part of the heartbroken, slightly bewildered sister perfectly. When Emma called me the morning after the restaurant, I was readied up. Lily. Oh, my God, Lily, I'm so sorry, she gushed, her voice a symphony of false sympathy. I feel terrible. I was so sick last night, I must have had some bad wine or something. Please tell me you and Daniel had a good time. Did you click? Oh, Emma, I said, letting a little tremor of sadness creep into my voice. He's wonderful. He really is. But I think he was a little distracted. I'm not sure he was all that interested in me. What, that's crazy. She was all righteous indignation, the protective sister. Of course he was interested. You're beautiful, Lily. Don't be silly. What makes you say that? I don't know, I sighed. It's just I could tell his attention was elsewhere. And then he kept asking about you. He asked if you were okay. He was really worried about you. It was sweet of him, really. He even offered to take you home himself, but I insisted he stay with me. I think I made him feel obligated. I let the implication hang in the air, a juicy morsel for her to devour. The lie was perfect. It was just enough truth to be believable. I knew Mark's type, and I knew he would be calling her. He'd be smooth, charming, and offer his apologies for her illness. He'd frame it as concern for the sister of the woman he was so interested in, but he'd lay the groundwork. And Emma, who was already preening at the idea of a man choosing her over me, would eat it up. Don't be ridiculous, Lily, she said, but I could hear the smug smile in her voice. He was just being a gentleman. You shouldn't read too much into it. Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we all go out again this weekend? I can be the third wheel and make sure you two don't get too shy. It'll be fun. Are you sure? I asked, my voice brightening. I don't want to impose. You're so busy with your new job. Don't be silly, she said. It's my duty as your big sister to look out for you. It's settled. Saturday night. I'll make the reservations. And just like that, the game was on. The first outing was awkward, at least for me. The three of us had dinner again, and this time I made a conscious effort to be quiet and a little withdrawn. I let Emma and Mark carry the conversation. I watched them circle each other like Shah RKS. He was all charm, lavishing her with compliments about her dress, her hair, her quick wit. She was batting her eyelashes and giggling at his jokes. They were so transparent it was almost laughable. Midway through the meal, I excused myself to go to the restroom. When I came back, they were sitting closer, their heads almost touching. I saw Mark's hand on the small of her back. I saw Emma's answering smile. They were already forgetting I existed. Oh, there you are, Emma said, trying to compose her face into a mask of sisterly concern. We were rooting to worry. You alright? I'm fine, I said, taking my seat. I was just thinking. I'm so sorry, but I think I might have to leave soon. I have a massive headache. I don't want to ruin your evening. Nonsense, Mark said quickly, a little too eagerly. We'll take you home. It's no problem at all. No, please, I insisted. I don't want to be a drag. The two of you stay. Have another glass of wine. I'll just grab a cab. It's better for everyone. I saw the flash of relief in both their eyes, a brief, unguided moment of joy at being rid of me. I made a show of putting my coat on and waved them off. Don't worry about me. You two have fun. I walked out into the CL night air, a smile curling on my lips. I didn't go straight home. I went to a coffee shop a few blocks away and sipped a latte while I watched them through the window. I saw them lean in for a kiss. I saw Emma's hand rest on his chest. It was a play I'd already seen. I just didn't know the full extent of the tragedy until the final act. For the next 2 months, I curated my distance. I was always busy, always tired, always under the weather. I declined their invitations to dinner, their double dates, their casual get-togethers. I let them grow close. I let them think I was oblivious. I let their affair blossom in the shadows I had created for them. And all the while, I was building my own foundation. I'd been a good architect, but I was also a meticulous researcher. In my past life, I'd been too sick, too heartbroken to fight. Now, I had time. And I had money. I didn't have my inheritance yet. My father's will stipulated I had to be 30 to access the bulk of it, but I had enough from the small trust my mother had left me and my architecture salary. I used it to hire a private investigator. The first report came back as an explosion of confirmation. The private investigator, a gruff but efficient man named Frank, laid it all out for me. Daniel Chambers doesn't exist, he said, sliding a file across the desk in his dingy office. He's using a fake name. His real name is Mark Devlin. He's a grifter, pure and simple. He's been running a legal consulting scam for heroines, using fake credentials to woo wealthy women. He's got 2 prior arrests for fraud, but they were both dropped when his victims refused to testify. He snorted. He's charming, all right. They all were. He took a long drag of his cigarette. He's also a gambler. A compulsive one. He's in debt up to his eyeballs. Bookies, loan sharks, you name it. He was on a hot streak for a while, paying them all off, but then he lost big. The amount he owes now would make you sick. How much? I asked, my voice steadied at about $2.4 million Rs. He's desperate. He's been using his consulting fees to pay off the interest, but the principal is killing him. He's got about 6 months before one of his creditors decides to make an example of him. 6 months. The timeline fit perfectly. In my past life, he'd married me 3 months after the blind date, and the wedding had been a grand affair, all paid for by the promise of my inheritance. He'd used my money to cover his debts. But this time, he was going to marry Emma. And Emma, for all her scheming, was a fool. She thought she was getting the prize. She had no idea she was buying a share in a failing corporation. The real masterstroke, however, was what I found out about Emma, that I couldn't afford to just watch her self-destruct. I had to be sure. So, I had Frank dig into her finances, too. What he found was even more damning. Emma was spending money she didn't have. She'd been living beyond her means for years, funding a lifestyle of designer clothes, exclusive clubs, and expensive vacations. She'd been dipping into our Pa Rent's trust fund, skimming small, rely noticeable amounts. But it was adding up. And she was terrified of being exposed. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Frank found a connection to her old boyfriend. A man named Derek. He was a low-level con artist, the one who taught Mark everything he knew. Emma and Derek had been a team, running small-time scams before he got caught and went to prison. They'd broken up, but they were still in contact. The plan was clearer than ever. Emma and Mark weren't just 2 people who'd fallen into an affair. They were a perfect storm of greed and desperation. She was looking for a rich, successful husband to secure her future. He was looking for a rich, naive wife to pay his debts. They were a match made in hell. I wasn't going to expose them. That would be too easy. Instead, I was going to help them, in the most passive-aggressive way possible. When Emma called me to tell me she was seeing Daniel, I was all smiles. Oh, Emma, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you. I feel terrible about it, Lily, I do, she said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. I know you liked him first. He pursued me so relentlessly. I couldn't help myself. We just had a connection, I understand, I said, my voice gentle and forgiving. You can't help who you fall in love with. And he's a great guy. You deserve to be happy. Why don't you 2 come over for dinner on Friday? We can celebrate. She was practically purring with satisfaction. She thought she had won. She thought I was the pathetic, doormat sister who was so desperate for her approval that I'd just roll over and accept her betrayal. That was exactly the impression I wanted to give. Friday came, and I had a beautiful meal. 3 courses, with the best wine I could afford. I watched them play their game. They sat close, their hands touching, their eyes locked. I was invisible. And that suited me perfectly. Over dessert, I made my move. Listen, you two, I began, my voice soft and hesitant. I've been thinking. I know this is a little unconventional, but I have a small apartment in the city. It's just sitting there empty. Mark, Daniel, I mean, you said you're looking for a place closer to your work. Why don't you stay there rent-free? It would save you a fortune. They both looked at me, stunned into silence. Why would you do that? Emma asked, her voice cautious. That's your place. I know, I said, but I can't bear to see a place sit empty. And you're my sister. And Daniel is. Well, he's going to be my brother-in-law someday, isn't he? It's a gift. A wedding gift. To help you two get sta root. I don't need the rent. Mark's eyes lit up. I could practically hear the money signs pinging in his head. A free apartment in the city was a massive score. He could use it as a base of operations for his scams. He could even hide from his bookies there. It was a gift from heaven, and it was coming from the same naive fool he'd already discounted. That's incredibly generous, Lily, he said, his voice smooth and grateful. I don't know what to say. That would really help me out. He didn't know that the apartment had been bugged. I'd had a friend from college, a tech genius who owed me a favor, install tiny, high-tech listening devices in the living room and the bedroom. I would be able to hear every word they said. Oh, it's nothing, I said, waving my hand dismissively. I'm just so happy for you both. You're perfect for each other. I can tell. Emma leaned over and kissed my cheek. You're the best sister in the world, Lily. It took every ounce of willpower not to recoil from her touch. I felt the cold venom spreading through my veins. You're going to need more than a kiss to make up for what you've done, I thought. And soon, you're going to pay for all of it. A month later, the engagement was announced. A lavish party at Mark's new, free apartment. I attended, of course, playing the perfect little sister. I said over Emma's diamond ring, a rock that I knew he'd bought with a loan from yet another shady lender. They were planning a huge wedding, with all the bells and whistles. The budget was astronomical. They were counting on our family's name and my parents' legacy to impress people. They were already spending the inheritance that wasn't even theirs yet. After the party, I was in the hall, about to leave, when I heard Emma's voice from inside the apartment. You need to call him, Mark. We need to finalize the plan, she was saying, her voice a hard, cold whisper. It was a voice I'd never heard her use before. It was the voice of the real Emma. The one who had smiled at me while I was dying. I know, he replied, his tone impatient. The consultant is on Boa Road. He's going to help me set up the investment accounts. We'll make it look like a legitimate prenup, and then we'll figure out how to transfer the funds. But we have to be careful. The lawyer is suspicious. He keeps asking questions. Then make him stop, she hissed. You're the one who's supposed to be the expert. I can't have this fall apart now. I've waited too long. I've put up with too much. We're so close. We're close, he agreed, his voice softening, turning sly. But first, you need to make sure your sister doesn't get suspicious. She's the one with the money, and she's the one who's going to be left holding the bag. You need to distract her. Take her on a trip, or something. Make sure she stays busy. Oh, I will, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness again. Don't worry about Lily. She's always been a fool. She'll be happy to be left out. She'll think it's her idea. I stood in the hallway, the cold, polished wood floor beneath my feet feeling like ice. The pieces had been scattered on the boa RD, and I had guided their hands to place them. They had just exposed the RT of their scheme, a fake financial advisor, a forged prenuptial agreement, and a plan to drain my sister's, my, inheritance as soon as she was married. They were going to frame me as the desperate, jealous sister who tried to ruin their happiness. They were going to paint me as the villain in their story. I walked back into the Pa Rudy, my smile fixed on my face. I approached the happy couple, who were whispering in a corner. Emma, Mark, I said, my voice bright and cheerful. I'm so sorry, but I'm afraid I have to go. I have an EARLY meeting tomorrow. But I just wanted to say, I paused, letting the emotion build. I've never seen you so happy, Emma. And Mark, I've never seen her so sure about anyone. You're a perfect match. I leaned in and hugged Emma tightly. I have a really good feeling about this, sis. I think this marriage is going to be the best thing that ever happened to you. She hugged me back, a little stiffly. Thanks, Lily. You're the best. I pulled away and looked at Mark, take care of her, okay, she's the only family I have left. He smiled, a slow, predatory smile. Oh, don't you worry, Lily. I'll take care of everything. He gave Emma a pointed look. We both will. I left the apartment, my heart pounding with a dark, ferocious joy. It wasn't just a plan anymore. It was a living, breathing organism I'd created. I'd given my sister the man she'd always wanted. I'd given him the opportunity he'd always craved. They were now bound together by their red greed, their mutual deceit, and a relationship built on a lie. They thought they were getting a windfall. They thought they were scamming me. But they were the ones being scammed, in the most elegant way possible. I was the architect of their downfall, and the foundation was laid on their own vanity and Ava Rice that the wedding was set for the fall. That gave me 6 months. 6 months to watch them destroy each other. 6 months to prepare the final, perfect trap. And I was going to enjoy every single minute of it. The 6 months leading up to the wedding were a masterclass in slow-motion destruction. I became the world's most devoted audience, watching the train wreck that was my sister's life with a detached, almost scientific fascination. The listening devices in the apartment were my window into their increasingly toxic relationship. At first, it was all champagne and stolen moments. I'd hear them whispering sweet nothings in the living room, their voices slurred with wine and lust. I've never felt this way about anyone, Emma would purr. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, Mark. And he'd respond with the same tired lines he'd used on me. You're my angel, Emma. My savior. But the cracks began to show within weeks. The first sign was money. I'd hear them arguing about the wedding budget. $250,000 Rs. That's insane, Emma. Where is it all going? The girl only gets married once, Mark. I want it to be perfect. My parents would have wanted it this way. And besides, your investors are counting on the wedding to build their confidence in you. It's a business expense. My investors are rooting to get impatient, he'd hiss back. They're not interested in your floral arrangements. They want results. They want to see the money. They'll see it, she'd snap. As soon as the prenup is signed, and the accounts are in my name. My father's lawyer is just dragging his heels. He doesn't trust you. He thinks you're a fraud. I keep telling you that, and you keep saying you'll handle it. Handle it, Mark. Their voices would rise, RP with anger. Then the shouting would start, followed by the occasional crash of a glass or a slammed door. The honeymoon phase was over, and the business partnership they'd envisioned was already showing signs of strain. The second major crack was Mark's gambling. I'd hear him making frantic phone calls at 3 in the morning, his voice a pleading, desperate rasp. I know I'm late, Tony. I know. Just give me another week. The wedding's in 2 months. As soon as the ink is dry on the prenup, I'll be good for it. I promise. I'll double it. Double it, I'd hear him scoff into the phone. You want to double it, I'll triple it if you just give me some breathing room. I have a plan. A genius plan. You just have to trust me. He was a man on the edge, and his web of lies was sta rooting to unravel. The debts were piling up. The investors were getting restless. And Emma, oblivious to the extent of his problems, was too busy planning her dream wedding to notice the cracks in her fiancé's facade. She just saw the expensive suits, the exclusive clubs, and the promises of a glamorous future. She had no idea he was one bad beat away from having his kneecaps broken. I, meanwhile, was quietly fortifying my own position. I'd taken a leave of absence from my architecture firm, citing family issues. The truth was, I was spending all my time meticulously planning the next phase of my revenge. The first part was the prenup. I'd cultivated a relationship with my father's old lawyer, Mr. Henderson, a shrewd, old-school attorney who had known my parents for decades. He was suspicious of Mark from the start, but Emma's constant pressure and my own well-placed hints about her desperate need for security had made him cautious. He'd drafted a prenuptial agreement that was airtight, but with a few cleverly hidden loopholes. They were designed to protect the assets of the family, but they were also designed to be exploitable by a determined, greedy couple. I'd accidentally left a copy of the draft agreement on the kitchen table of my own apartment, knowing full well Emma had a key and would snoop. I'd also made sure to let slip, in a private conversation with Mr. Henderson, that she could overhear that the trust fund would be fully accessible to her upon marriage. It was a lie, of course. I'd already had Mr. Henderson rewrite the trust, making me the sole trustee and executor until I was 35. But Emma and Mark didn't need to know that. They just needed to see the prize. The second part was Mark's consulting business. I'd hired Frank to dig even deeper. It turned out Mark wasn't just running a simple fraud operation. He was also laundering money for some very unsavory characters. The kind of people who didn't appreciate being cheated. The kind of people who left messages like, "pay up or else," on answering machines. I'd kept a meticulous file on all of this, waiting for the perfect moment to use it. The third part was the most delicate. I had to make sure that when the trap finally closed, I would be untouchable. I had to appear to be the victim, the naive sister who had been duped by her own flesh and blood. So, I continued to play the part. I sent Emma flowers for her bridal shower. I offered to help with the seating arrangements. I gushed over her wedding dress, a hideous, overpriced monstrosity that she thought made her look like a princess. I was the picture of supportive sisterly love. It was during one of these supportive moments, about a month before the wedding, that I got my first real glimpse of the monster Emma had become. We were having lunch at a chic cafe in Soho, just the two of us. She was talking incessantly about the honeymoon, a 2-week trip to the Maldives that Mark had supposedly booked. "It's going to be divine, Lily. Just the two of us, on a private island, with nothing to do but, well, you know." She winked, a lewd, conspiratorial gesture. "That sounds amazing, Em," I said, forcing a smile. "You deserve it. You've worked so hard on this wedding." She leaned back in her chair, her eyes glinting. "You know, Lily, I've been thinking. Since you're not married and you're so good with all that financial stuff, maybe you could help us out. Mark is so busy with his work, he really has time to breathe. I was hoping you could oversee some of the accounts for us. Just temporarily, of course. Until we get settled." I nearly choked on my water. She was asking me to hand over access to my own money. She was so confident in her scheme that she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. "Oh, I don't know," I said, feigning hesitation. I'm pretty busy with my own stuff. And Mr. Henderson handles all the family accounts. He's the expert. I'd hate to step on his toes. Don't be silly, she said, waving a dismissive hand. Mr. Henderson is ancient. He's practically senile. He doesn't understand our modern needs. Mark knows a financial advisor who's much more four-way RD thinking. He can get us better returns. And he works with a lot of celebrity clients. You know, the kind of people who value privacy. It would be perfect. I knew exactly who she was talking about. It was the consultant she and Mark had discussed on the listening device. A man who was, in reality, a small-time con artist with a fake degree and a criminal record for embezzlement. I'll think about it, I said, giving her a non-committal smile. Let me talk to Mr. Henderson first. You know he gets his feathers ruffled when anyone else touches the family money. She didn't like that answer. Her smile tightened, and a flicker of annoyance crossed her face. Fine. But don't take too long. The wedding is coming up fast, and we need to get everything in order. I watched her walk away after lunch, her perfect posture and designer handbag a testament to her complete lack of self-awareness. She had no idea that I had already met with Mark's financial advisor the week before. I'd played the part of a concerned sister, asking him questions about his credentials, his experience, his investment philosophy. I'd recorded the entire conversation. And then I'd handed the recording over to Frank, along with the advisor's real name and criminal history. The pieces were all in place. The final blow came 3 days before the wedding. I'd been invited to the apartment for a pre-wedding celebration, just the three of us. When I arrived, Emma and Mark were already tipsy, laughing too loudly at their own jokes. The champagne was flowing, and the tension between them was palpable. As we sat down to dinner, I made my move. I excused myself to the bathroom, but instead of going in, I stood just outside the door and listened. I heard Emma's voice, low and urgent. She's still not giving us access to the accounts. Mr. Henderson is stonewalling us. We need to speed this up. I know, Mark replied, his voice tense. But we can't do anything until after the wedding. The prenup is signed, but the trust fund hasn't been transferred yet. We need to be patient. Patient, Emma hissed. I've been patient for 10 years. I've been waiting for this inheritance since our parents died. I've been the good daughter, the supportive sister. And what do I get? A dead-end job and a sister who gets everything handed to her. I'm done waiting. There was a pause, and then Mark's voice, softer now. Don't worry, baby. After the wedding, it's all ours. We'll have the money, and we'll be out of here. I have contacts in the Caribbean. We can disappear a new life. I don't want to disappear, she snapped. I want to be rich. I want to be powerful. I want to walk into any room and have people know who I am. I want everyone to see that I got what I deserved. Enough. I walked back to the table, my smile firmly in place. Sorry about that, I said, taking my seat. All that champagne went right through me. So, tell me about the honeymoon again. I want to hear every detail. They launched into another elaborate description of their private island fantasy, their eyes glowing with greed and self-satisfaction. I smiled and nodded, all the while counting down the hours. The wedding day arrived, and I was the perfect maid of honor. I helped Emma into her dress, I held her bouquet, and I made sure her train was perfect as she walked down the aisle. I stood beside her at the altar and watched her say, I do, to a man who was a lie, a fraud, and a debt-ridden gambling addict. I smiled as she kissed him, sealing her fate. The reception was a lavish affair. The champagne flowed, the band played, and everyone was dancing. I watched Mark and Emma glide across the dance floor, the picture of perfect happiness. They were so wrapped up in each other, so convinced of their victory, that they didn't notice me slip away. I went to the coat check and retrieved my purse. Inside was a small USB drive and a sealed envelope. I walked over to Mr. Henderson, who was standing by the bar, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Henderson," I said, my voice calm and steady. "I need you to do something for me. It's important." He looked at me, his old eyes filled with concern. "Of course, Lily. What is it?" I handed him the USB drive and the envelope. The drive contains all the evidence. The financial records, the recorded conversations, the criminal backgrounds. The envelope contains a letter for my sister. "I want you to give it to her tomorrow, after the honeymoon is over. And I want you to make sure the authorities have everything they need." He nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his face. "You've been planning this for a long time, haven't you?" "Long enough," I said, my voice really a whisper. "Long enough." I watched him disappear into the crowd, the USB drive and the envelope safely in his pocket. I took a deep breath, the weight of the last 6 months lifting from my shoulders. I had done it. I had given my sister the man she always wanted. And now, I was going to take everything away. That I walked back to the dance floor and smiled at the happy couple. "Emma, Mark, I just wanted to say congratulations again. This is the most beautiful wedding I've ever seen. I wish you all the happiness in the world." Emma hugged me, her smile wide and genuine for the first time in months. "Thank you, Lily. You're the best sister anyone could ask for." I hugged her back, feeling the cold satisfaction spreading through my veins. The trap was sprung. The poison was in the cup. And all I had to do was wait for the final, beautiful fall. The honeymoon was a disaster. I knew this because I'd had Frank's contact in the Maldives keep tabs on them. Apparently, the private island Mark had booked was a budget resort that had been double booked, and they ended up in a cramped bungalow with a broken air conditioner and a view of the maintenance shed. But the real collapse began the moment they landed back in New York. I wasn't there to greet them at the airport. I'd made sure of that. I was at my apartment, sipping tea and waiting for the fireworks to start. Mr. Henderson had done exactly as I'd asked. He delivered the envelope to Emma's penthouse, along with a formal letter from his firm stating that they were severing all ties with her due to irreconcilable conflicts of interest. He'd also sent copies of all the evidence to the district attorney's office, the FBI, and the New York State Bar Association. I'd made sure there was no way for them to sweep this under the rug. The first call came at 7:43 p.m. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Emma's voice was shrill, frantic. "Lily, what the hell is this? Why is Mr. Henderson saying you've cut me off? Why is there a letter from some law firm saying I'm under investigation? Call me back now." The second call came 10 minutes later. This time, it was Mark. His voice was cold, controlled, but I could hear the panic simmering beneath the surface. "Lily, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is a mistake. A big mistake. You need to call off your lawyer and fix this. Or there will be consequences." I smiled and deleted both messages. The game was in its final act, and I had no intention of speaking to either of them until the curtain fell. The next morning, the story broke. The New York Post ran a front-page headline, "Billionaire Heiress Swindled by Sister and Con Man Husband." The article was a masterpiece of tabloid journalism, complete with grainy photos of Mark leaving a casino in Atlantic City and Emma's old mugshot from a DUI arrest she'd managed to keep hidden for years. The details were all there: the fake name, the gambling debts, the money laundering, the conspiracy to defraud a family trust. It was everything I'd given Mr. Henderson, laid out in lurid, sensational detail. My phone exploded. News outlets, distant relatives, old college friends, everyone wanted a comment. I turned my phone off and retreated to a small cafe in Brooklyn, where I could watch the world burn from a safe distance. By noon, the media was camped outside Emma's building. I watched the live coverage on my phone, a strange, detached calm settling over me. Reporters were shoving microphones in the faces of anyone who walked by, asking for exclusive insights into the sordid saga of the Vanderbilt sisters. I saw Emma's neighbor, a sour-faced woman I'd always disliked, gleefully describing how she'd always suspected something was off with that one. Then, at 2:17 p.m., the camera caught a glimpse of Emma and Mark trying to leave the building. They were wearing sunglasses and hats, but they were quickly mobbed. I saw Mark push a reporter aside, his face twisted with rage. I saw Emma stumble, her heels catching on the pavement. And I saw the look of pure, unadulterated fear in her eyes as she realized the world was watching her fall. I turned off the video and ordered another latte. The satisfaction was sweet, but it wasn't complete. There was still one more scene to play. 3 days later, when the initial frenzy had died down, I finally agreed to meet them. Emma had called me at least 40 times, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. "Please, Lily, just talk to me. I don't understand what's happening. This is all a misunderstanding. We can fix this. Just please call me back." I chose a neutral location, a quiet, upscale restaurant in Midtown that was frequented by businesspeople who valued discretion. I arrived early and took a seat in the back, where I could see the door. When they walked in, I recognized them. Emma looked haggard. Her perfect blonde hair was greasy and pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her designer clothes were rumpled, as if she'd been sleeping in them. Dark circles ringed her eyes, and her lips were cracked and dry. Mark was no better. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and his eyes had a wild, hunted look. He'd clearly been drinking. They slid into the booth across from me, and the waiter read. "Can I get you something to drink?" "Whiskey," Mark said, his voice flat. "Double." "Neat." "Water for me," Emma said, her eyes fixed on me. "Just water." The waiter read, and we sat in silence for a long moment. Emma was the first to speak. "Lily, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to stop. This has gone too far. You've ruined my life." "Ruined your life," I repeated, my voice calm and measured. "Emma, you're the one who walked down the aisle and said, 'I do,' to a con artist. You're the one who plotted to steal my inheritance. You're the one who spent years lying to me. I didn't ruin your life. I just made sure the truth came out." Her face went pale. "That's not true," she said, her voice trembling. "I never plotted anything." "Mark, don't," Mark cut her off, his voice a sharp warning. He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Lily, I don't know what you think you know, but this is all a big misunderstanding. The financial advisor I was working with was a fraud. He tricked us. He's the one who set up the accounts and planned the transfer. I had no idea what he was doing." I almost laughed. Even now, he was trying to spin the lie. "Mark, I have recordings of you and Emma discussing the plan in detail. I have evidence of your gambling debts, your fake credentials, your previous arrests. I have a signed affidavit from the financial advisor, who was more than happy to cooperate with the authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence. The only misunderstanding here is your belief that you could get away with it." Mark's face went red, then white. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Emma, on the other hand, root to cry. Not the pretty, controlled TRS she'd always used to manipulate me. These were ugly, desperate sobs that shook her entire body. "Please, Lily," she begged, reaching across the table and grabbing my hands. "You can't do this to me. I'm your sister. I'm your only family. Please, just call off the investigation. We can go back to the way things were. I'll give you everything. The money, the apartment, whatever you want. Just please, don't let them destroy me. I pulled my hands away, my expression cold. Emma, you destroyed yourself the moment you decided to marry a man you knew was a fraud. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided to steal from me. I'm not doing anything. I'm just watching you face the consequences of your own choices. She broke down completely, burying her face in her hands. Mark watched her, his expression shifting from rage to calculation. He was already planning his next move, already figuring out how to save himself at her expense. Lily, he said, his voice smooth and conciliatory. I'll admit, I made mistakes. I was desperate. I was in debt. I thought this was the only way out. But Emma didn't know about any of that. She was just trying to help me. She's innocent in all of this. Please, just let her go. I'll take the fall. I'll confess to everything. Just leave her out of it. It was a brilliant move. He was sacrificing himself to save her, painting himself as the villain and her as the victim. It was the perfect performance, the final act of a master manipulator. He had no idea that I'd been watching them from the start. Interesting, I said, turning to Emma. Did you hear that, Emma? He's willing to take the blame for everything. He's willing to go to prison for you. Does that sound like the man you married, or does it sound like a man who's trying to save his own skin by throwing you under the bus? Emma looked up, her eyes red and swollen. She read at Mark, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. Mark, what are you doing? We're supposed to be in this together. We promised. We are in this together, he said, his voice urgent. That's why I'm trying to protect you. Don't listen to her. She's trying to turn us against each other. Turn you against each other, I said, letting out a bitter laugh. Emma, you've been having an affair with him for months. You knew exactly what he was. You knew about his debts, his lies, his criminal history. And you didn't see because you thought you could use him to get what you wanted. Just like you used me. Just like you used every single person who ever loved you. Her face crumbled. She was exposed now, stripped of every last lie she'd ever told. I didn't mean for this to happen, she sobbed. I just wanted to be happy. I just wanted to be someone. And that's why you deserve everything that's coming to you, I said, my voice cold and final. Because happiness isn't something you steal from someone else. It's something you earn. And you, Emma, have earned nothing but this. I stood up and placed $100 bill on the table. This is for the drinks. Consider it a wedding gift. I don't expect to see either of you again. I walked out of the restaurant, leaving them sitting in stunned silence. The satisfaction was overwhelming, a heady rush of pure, righteous anger. I had won. I had taken everything from them. But as I walked through the streets of Manhattan, I realized that the victory felt hollow. The people I'd loved most in the world had betrayed me, and I had destroyed them. I had gotten my revenge, but at what cost? The legal proceedings dragged on for months. Mark was convicted on multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Emma, thanks to a plea deal she'd struck with the prosecution, got off with 3 years of probation and a massive fine. She'd been able to avoid jail time by testifying against Mark, offering up all the details of their scheme in exchange for a lighter sentence. I watched the court proceedings from the gallery, my expression blank. She didn't look at me once. The media coverage was relentless. For weeks, I was hounded by reporters, photographers, and talk show hosts. I gave one interview, to a reputable news outlet, in which I calmly and clearly explained what had happened. I told the world about my sister's betrayal, my husband's lies, and the cancer that had almost killed me. I told them about the second chance I'd been given and how I'd used it to take back my life. The interview went viral. The response was overwhelming. Women wrote to me, sharing their own stories of betrayal and survival. I became a symbol of resilience, a cautionary tale and a source of inspiration all rolled into one. But the money was gone. Not all of it, but a significant portion. Emma and Mark had siphoned off over $1 million before I'd caught them, and while some of it was recovered, most of it was lost to Mark's gambling debts and their lavish spending. The trust fund was safe, thanks to Mr. Henderson's interventions, but the damage was done. The family legacy was tarnished, and the name Vanderbilt would forever be associated with scandal and deceit that I sold the penthouse. I gave up my apartment. I moved to a small town in upstate New York, a quiet, unassuming place where no one knew my name. I bought a modest house with a garden and a view of the mountains. I started painting again, a hobby I'd abandoned years ago. I reconnected with old friends, the ones who'd stood by me when the world turned against me. I took long walks in the woods, feeling the sun on my skin and the wind in my hair. In the quiet moments, I thought about what I'd done. I thought about the woman I'd become, the one who'd spent months plotting and scheming, feeding lies and manipulating people. I thought about the cold satisfaction I'd felt when I saw Emma's face crumble. I thought about the monster I'd turned into in the name of revenge. And I wondered if I would ever be able to forgive myself. One afternoon, about a year after the trial, I received a letter. It was from Emma. It was short, a paragraph long. Lily, it read. I know you'll never forgive me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. The lies, the betrayal, the cruelty. I was so consumed by my own jealousy and greed that I couldn't see what I was doing to you. I was a monster. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to become the person I should have been. I don't expect you to reply. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to change. I hope you find peace. Emma. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it, placed it in an envelope, and buried it at the bottom of my closet. I didn't know if she meant it. I didn't know if I read. But as the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, hope. Not for a reconciliation, not for a happy ending. But for the possibility of a future free from the weight of the past. I had been reborn once, and I had used my second chance to tear down the people who'd wronged me. Now, I had a new chance. A chance to rebuild, to heal, to become the woman I was always meant to be. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to take it. The years passed in a quiet rhythm that I'd never known I craved. Upstate New York became my sanctuary, a place where the sharp edges of my past slowly softened into something I could live with. I kept the house small, just 3 bedrooms and a wrap-around porch that faced the Catskills. In the spring, I planted tulips along the walkway. In the summer, I sat on the porch swing with a glass of lemonade and watched the fireflies blink on and off like tiny, terrestrial stars. I painted canvases that no one would ever see and filled notebooks with sketches of mountains and trees and the occasional hawk circling overhead. I didn't miss the city. I didn't miss the noise, the crowds, the constant pressure to be someone I wasn't. I especially didn't miss the name Vanderbilt. I'd legally changed it to my mother's maiden name, C.A. Reuter, a small act of rebellion that felt more like liberation than erasure. Lily C.A. Reuter. It had a clean, simple sound to it. It sounded like someone who could start over I heard from Frank occasionally. He'd retired from private investigation and moved to Florida, but he still sent me the occasional postcard. The last one had a picture of a pelican on it, and the message read, "No news is good news. The Shah RKS have moved on. Hope you're doing the same." I smiled and tucked it into a drawer with the others. He was right. The Shah RKS had moved on. Mark was serving his sentence in a federal prison in Pennsylvania, and Emma was living somewhere in the Midwest, working at a small marketing firm under a new name. The media had lost interest years ago, moving on to fresher scandals and newer tragedies. I was just another forgotten headline, a footnote in the annals of New York's sordid history. And I was grateful for that. I'd spent my life surrounded by people who wanted something from me, who saw me as a means to an end. Here, in the quiet solitude of my small town, no one wanted anything. The neighbors knew me as the quiet woman who painted in her garden. The local grocer called me Lily and asked about my vegetables. The librarian recommended mystery novels and never once brought up my past. I was just a person, ordinary and unremarkable. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. But healing isn't linear. I learned that the hard way that there were nights when the old memories crept back. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, convinced I was back in the hospital bed, the machines beeping their monotonous death knell. I'd hear Emma's voice, sweet and poisonous, telling me I was imagining things. I'd see Mark's face, his eyes cold and calculating, as he signed another document that siphoned away my life. On those nights, I'd get up and make tea, sitting at the kitchen table until the sun rose and the shadows retreated. I'd remind myself that I was safe, that they couldn't hurt me anymore. But the fear was always there, a low hum beneath the surface of my new life. I root seeing a therapist in the next town over, a kind woman named Dr. Alva Rez who specialized in trauma recovery. She never judged me, never told me what I should or shouldn't feel. She just listened, and sometimes, that was enough. You went through something terrible, she said during one session. Not just the betrayal, but the illness. The feeling of being trapped, helpless. It's natural to carry that with you. But I don't want to carry it anymore, I said, my voice really a whisper. I've spent years carrying it. I'm tired. She nodded, her eyes soft and understanding. Then maybe it's time to set it down. Not forget. Not forgive. Just set it down. Give yourself permission to move on. I thought about that a lot in the weeks that followed. I thought about the weight I'd been carrying, the anger and resentment that had fueled me for so long. I'd used it as a weapon, a shield, a reason to keep going. But now that the battle was over, what was I supposed to do with it? How did I let go of something that had defined me for so long? The answer came in the form of a letter, 6 years after the trial. It was a crisp autumn afternoon. The leaves had turned brilliant shades of red and gold, and the air smelled like wood smoke and apples. I was raking the yard when the mail truck pulled up. The driver, a young man named Carlos who always had a kind word, handed me a stack of envelopes. Looks like you got a big one today, Miss Lily, he said, grinning. Maybe a secret admirer, I laughed and took the mail. There was a bill, a catalog, and a thick, cream-colored envelope with no return address. The handwriting on the front was familiar, and my heart stopped for a moment. It was Emma's handwriting. I hadn't seen it in years, but I recognized it instantly. The elegant loops, the precise slant. It was the handwriting of a woman who'd spent her life trying to control the narrative. I took the envelope inside and sat down at the kitchen table. I read at it for a long time, my hands shaking slightly. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to pretend I'd never seen it. The other part, the part that was still the little girl who'd looked up to her big sister, wanted to know what she had to say. I opened it with a butter knife, careful not to tear the paper. Inside was a letter, several pages long, and a photograph. The photo was of Emma, older and thinner, standing in front of a small house with a white picket fence. She was smiling, but it wasn't the dazzling, predatory smile I remembered. It was softer, more tentative. She looked like someone who'd been through a war and was just beginning to see the other side. The letter was dated 3 weeks Dear Lily, it began. I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you'll even open the envelope. But I had to try. I had to tell you, one last time, how sorry I am. I read the letter slowly, savoring each word. She talked about her time in probation, the mandatory counseling sessions, the community service. She talked about the loneliness, the shame, the moment she realized that she'd become the kind of person she'd always despised. She talked about her job in marketing, her small apartment, the friends she'd made who didn't know her past. She talked about the therapy she'd undergone, the long, painful process of understanding why she'd done what she'd done. I was jealous of you, Lily, she wrote. I know that sounds pathetic, but it's the truth. I was jealous of your kindness, your goodness, your ability to see the best in people. I was jealous of the way our parents looked at you, the way they trusted you. And instead of dealing with my own feelings, I lashed out. I tried to tear you down because I couldn't build myself up. I thought that if I had what you had, I'd finally be happy. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. She went on to describe her relationship with Mark, the lies she told herself to justify her actions. I convinced myself that he loved me, that we were partners, that we were building something together. But he was just using me, just like he'd used you. And I let him. Because I was too proud, too stubborn, too red to admit that I'd made a mistake. By the time I realized the truth, it was too late. The damage was done. And I'd lost you forever. The letter ended with a plea. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I'm asking for your peace. Please, Lily, don't let the past destroy you. Don't let what I did ruin the life you've built. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be free. And maybe, one day, if you can find it in your heart, you might be able to think of me without feeling pain. I'll never stop hoping for that. I'll never stop trying to be the sister you deserved. All my love, Emma. I folded the letter and set it down on the table. I looked out the window at the mountains, their peaks painted in shades of amber and crimson. The sun was setting, casting long, golden shadows across the road. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness for the girl I'd once loved. Regret for the years we'd lost. And something else, something I hadn't expected. Relief. I wasn't angry anymore. The fire that had burned so brightly inside me had finally died down, leaving behind only the ashes. I realized that I'd spent so long hating Emma that I'd forgotten how to love myself. I'd defined myself by her betrayal, by the revenge I'd taken. But that wasn't who I was. It was who I'd been forced to become. And now, I had the chance to be something else. Something better. I wrote Emma a letter the next day. It was short and to the point. Emma, I got your letter. I read it twice. I don't know if I can forgive you. Maybe I never will. But I don't hate you anymore. I think that's a start. I hope you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're finding the peace you deserve. And I hope, someday, we can talk. Not as sisters. Not as enemies. Just as two people who've survived something terrible. Take care of yourself. Lily. I sent the letter and tried not to think about it. Weeks passed, and I didn't hear back. I stopped checking the mail with such desperate hope. I focused on my garden, my painting, my quiet life. I built a routine that didn't include thoughts of her, a routine that was mine and mine alone. One evening, about a month later, I got a phone call. It was from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, I said. Lily, the voice was trembling, hesitant. It's me. It's Emma. I was silent for a long moment. The words sat on my tongue, thick and strange. Hi, I finally said. How are you? And we talked. For the first time in years, we talked like two people who were trying to find common ground. It was awkward and stilted and painful. There were long pauses and moments of silence that felt like chasms. But we talked. We talked about our lives, our struggles, our hopes for the future. We didn't mention the past, not directly. We didn't have to. It was there, in the spaces between our words, a red history we'd both have to live with. When we hung up, I sat in the silence of my kitchen and let the tears fall. They were tears of grief, yes, but also of release. The burden I'd carried for so long was finally lifting. I had no idea what the future would hold for us. Maybe we'd find a way to rebuild our relationship. Maybe we'd drift apart again. But for the first time, I was open to the possibility. I was ready to move on. That night, I went out to the porch and watched the stars come out. The air was cold and crisp, and I could see my breath in the moonlight. I thought about the woman I used to be, the woman who'd been so consumed by anger that she'd forgotten how to feel anything else. I thought about the woman I was becoming, someone who could hold space for grief and joy, loss and hope. I thought about the life I'd built, the small, quiet world I'd created for myself. It wasn't the life I'd imagined. It wasn't glamorous or exciting. But it was mine. And that was more than enough. I stayed on the porch until the cold became too much to bear. Then I went inside, closed the door, and locked it behind me. I stood in the hallway for a moment, my hand resting on the wood. The house was quiet, filled with the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. It was the sound of peace. The sound of a life well lived. I walked to my bedroom, climbed into bed, and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I didn't dream of the hospital. I didn't dream of Emma or Mark or the sting of betrayal. Instead, I dreamed of a garden, full of flowers I'd never seen before, with a path that wound through the trees toward a horizon I'd never quite reached. And I was walking down that path, one step at a time, toward something new. Something beautiful. Something that was all my own.